Philosophy is essentially the human operating system. You're about to download 4 years of university-level philosophy directly into your cortex, and we're going to do it in exactly 20 minutes. So let's just jump right in. Look, we're skipping all the academic fluff today. We're going to systematically decode the rational and critical inquiry into existence, knowledge, and absolute values. The goal here? I want to give you the ultimate cheat code to reality. We're filtering out the noise to focus purely on the foundational concepts that dictate literally how we experience the world. Because every human institution runs on this exact source code. We're systematically mapping out the underlying architecture of reality itself. Think of the core branches of philosophy as our system directory map. We're going to explore the fundamental pillars that hold up everything we know, everything we do, and everything we believe to be true.
All right, Level 1, Metaphysics. This branch investigates the fundamental nature of existence, time, and space. Now, ontology is its primary subbranch, and it asks a singular, completely ruthless question. What actually exists? Like, is reality purely physical matter and energy, or do abstract entities, things like numbers, concepts, moral values, do they exist independently in some higher dimension? It even forces us to question the nature of identity itself. How much can something change over time while still remaining the exact same thing? This brings us to Plato. He launched Western idealism by basically splitting reality right down the middle. He claims that the physical objects we see all around us are just imperfect, decaying copies of eternal, perfect forms that exist in some higher realm. For Plato, truth resides purely in the abstract. But then Aristotle steps in and violently rejects this dualism with his concept of hylomorphism. He argued, no way, you cannot separate the design from the material. He stated reality consists of individual substances combining matter and form right here, right now, in the physical world. Form doesn't just float in some mystical void, it's inextricably fused with physical matter. Okay, let's make this super concrete. Think of Plato's forms like a perfect, flawless digital master file on your computer. Everything you touch and interact with in the real world, that's just a glitching, messy, low-resolution 3D print of that perfect file. For Plato, true reality is always the pristine digital file, absolutely never the flawed physical printout you're holding in your hands. Over time, this massive metaphysical debate evolved into the famous mind-body problem. René Descartes established substance dualism, cleanly splitting the universe into mind and matter. He argued that the mind and body are entirely separate entities that just miraculously interact. He even wildly speculated this happened through the pineal gland in your brain. But modern physicalism strikes back hard, claiming that what we call mind or consciousness is entirely reducible to neurochemical brain activity and electrical impulses. In physicalism, you aren't a ghost in a machine, you are just the machine. Metaphysics also forces us to confront determinism. This is the heavy philosophy claiming that every single event is the inevitable outcome of preceding causes and natural laws. It deeply challenges human agency and control. It suggests that every choice you make is literally just the latest domino falling in an endless, unbreakable chain of cause and effect that reaches all the way back to the dawn of the universe. Think about that for a second. If hard determinism is true, your deepest sense of free will is nothing more than a biological illusion. You didn't freely choose to click on this explainer today. You were pre-programmed by the universe's initial conditions, your genetics, and your specific environment to watch this exact explainer right at this very moment. Kind of wild, right? Let's move up to Level 2, Epistemology. This is the study of how we acquire, analyze, and fundamentally validate knowledge. If metaphysics asks, what is there? Epistemology acts as the vital software filter asking, how can we possibly know what is there? It's the strict validation filter of the human mind. Traditionally, it defines knowledge as justified true belief. To actually know something, 3 conditions have to be met. You must believe it must factually be true, and your justification for believing it must be absolutely airtight. This rigorous framework is what separates actual, objective truth from mere assumption, a lucky guess, or just an unverified opinion. Now, the great war of epistemology is rationalism versus empiricism. This is a fundamental, centuries-old split over exactly how we know what we know. It's a massive debate that really shaped the foundation of everything from the modern scientific method to contemporary cognitive science.
Rationalists like Descartes believed reason is the primary source of truth, existing entirely independent of sensory experience, because, let's face it, our senses can often deceive us. Descartes pushed skepticism to its absolute psychological limit. He doubted everything his senses told him until he hit absolute bedrock. He finally realized that the very act of doubting proved he existed as a thinking entity, which led to that legendary realization, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. On the flip side, empiricists like John Locke completely countered this. Locke argued that the human mind begins as a tabula rasa, an entirely blank slate. According to him, there is no innate knowledge pre-installed in the human operating system. Nope. Locke argued all knowledge must be derived exclusively from sensory experience, physical interaction, and rigorous empirical observation of the natural world around us. Let's test this in the modern world. Is Wikipedia a valid source of knowledge? When you see a frantic screen recording of someone editing a Wikipedia page and that glaring red citation-needed stamp flashes on the screen, that right there is a modern epistemological crisis playing out in front of you. It's the exact philosophical debate of justified true belief happening in real time on the internet. Next up, we boot up level 3, logic. This is the formal processing engine that governs strict reasoning and keeps our mental systems from crashing into contradiction. It utilizes structured computation, like Aristotle's syllogism. It moves inescapably from a general, major premise to a specific, minor premise, and finally lands on a logically necessary conclusion. For example, if all humans are mortal and Socrates is human, then Socrates is definitively mortal. Anyone who accepts the initial premises is completely bound by the rules of logic to accept the conclusion. There's literally no escape. What's absolutely crucial here is the distinction between how we fundamentally reason. Deduction guarantees its conclusion if the premises are true. It's incredibly secure, top-down logic. Induction, on the other hand, is bottom-up. It draws probabilistic generalizations from specific, empirical observations of the natural world. We use induction every single day, like when we assume the sun will rise tomorrow simply because it's risen every day in the past. It's highly probable, for sure, but it's not mathematically guaranteed. Finally, we reach level 4, axiology. This consists of ethics and aesthetics, and it acts as the user interface for how we directly interact with the philosophical system and find actual, tangible meaning. Ethics determines our system outputs. It's the moral philosophy that directly addresses how we should live as conscious agents. It seeks to establish what the virtuous life actually looks like, how we strictly define proper conduct, and whether we have absolute moral duties that exist objectively, completely regardless of the physical consequences or cultural norms of the time. Then there's aesthetics, which evaluates the creative design of our world. It explores everything related to beauty and expression, asking whether art is merely an imitation of nature, what the Greeks called mimesis, or if it's a vital, direct vehicle for expressing profound, deeper truths about human existence that strict logic and rigid science simply cannot capture. Along with political philosophy, which questions the legitimacy of government power, liberty, and human rights, these branches govern the ultimate human experience. They take the abstract hidden code of metaphysics and epistemology and apply it directly to how we build thriving societies, create magnificent art, and interact with each other with justice and fairness. And this leads us to a total system rebook. Because here's the secret. A single philosophical question, approached with intense rigor, opens a backdoor to all the others, forcing a complete system reboot of your reality. Your foundational metaphysical commitments directly shape your politics, your ethics, and your science. Everything connects. So now that you've systematically installed this mental framework, consider this final thought. If everything you experience on a daily basis is just sensory data filtered through your epistemic hardware, who or what wrote your source code? Think about that until our next explainer.